welcome to PEPP Learning. And PEPP Learning is the biggest platform for CUT, UG, CUT, PG, UGC NET, KTET coaching. And we provide mock test, live class, recorded videos, and quality classes. Okay, let me introduce. I am Safa. I'm going to give you a live session on UGC NTA English examination, and two or three or lives I have completed. In all these live sessions, I discussed about some literary criticism and theories. New historicism we completed and formalism completed. So let me give you one structure of my class, and before that this is about the PEPP Learning. And if you want to join our team, and you can call this number, and all these are the features of PEPP Learning, like 250 plus hours live recorded sessions, and 10,000 questions, sample question papers, mock tests, PYQ discussions, and detailed program report, offline meetup, one-on-one individual mentoring, career guidance, and affordable pricing. All these are the features of PEPP Learning. Okay, and today's topic is the cultural studies. Cultural studies is a topic before I am going to present. Okay, and in last two live sessions I discussed about the formalism and new historicism. So in all these classes, my structure and the structure of my class is, first I'll give you and what this topic and important points regarding that particular topic. Then I gave some previous year questions also. So when you analyze these previous questions, and you can see all the points I've already discussed in our theory classes. And first I'll give the theory classes related to that particular topic. Then the previous year questions also I have given the previous live sessions. Okay, start your study process for the next coming June exam. Now cultural studies. Cultural studies is a big and wide, vast area in literature and in theory and criticism. Okay, വളരെ വലിയൊരു area ആണ് cultural studies. So I'll give you some hints of cultural studies. Okay, and here cultural studies actually is a big reaction against liberal humanism and some orthodox Marxism. So in that way, thus cultural studies started. Culture, as you all know, this is related to our life. This is related to political, social, and cultural aspects of our life. Cultural studies include the all part of one human being, and it is a whole part of the society. Here, cultural studies began reaction against orthodox Marxism. And first, Matthew Arnold, the great writer of English literature, Matthew Arnold, he wrote the work Culture and Anarchy. And his work Culture and Anarchy, in this work, he discussed about the culture. Okay, first he introduced and first he mentioned about culture, but Matthew Arnold gave importance to the elite culture, the elite class, elite people. ഏറ്റവും highest ആയിട്ടുള്ള നമ്മൾ ഒന്ന് അനലൈസ് ചെയ്ത് നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ ഹിസ്റ്ററി എടുത്ത് നോക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ especially the high classes and the elite classes, they dominate in all the fields. Here Matthew Arnold, Culture and Anarchy, discussed about the elite class culture and the importance of the high culture. He discussed in his work Culture and Anarchy. Rashik, hi. And here F.R. Leaves, after Matthew Arnold, another work related to cultural studies is F.R. Leaves' Great Tradition. In Great Tradition, F.R. Leaves discussed about the great writers, the great high cultural writers and the elite class writers. But literature ആണെങ്കിലും എഴുത്താണെങ്കിലും സാഹിത്യം അതുപോലെ എല്ലാം ആരുടെ കയ്യിലായിരുന്നു? ഒരു എലീറ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സസിൻ്റെ കയ്യിലായിരുന്നു. കൾച്ചർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ഒരു ഹൈ കൾച്ചർ എന്ന് മാത്രമായിരുന്നു. എലീറ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിന് മാത്രമുള്ളൊരു കൾച്ചർ ആയിരുന്നു. These two writers, Matthew Arnold and F.R. Leaves, and they talked about the high culture. Then what happened to this? Almost towards the end of 1990s, 1990s വരുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് കുറച്ച് കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറയാനുണ്ട്. എങ്കിൽ പോലും 1990s, that period as what they dominated the direction of literary criticism. The cultural studies, the domination of cultural studies we see during the time of 1990s. 1990s is the period of the dominance of the cultural studies. People give more importance to, and the writers give more importance to, and the students give more importance to the cultural studies and its relevance to the society. And during the time of 1990s, it is one of the trends. It was one of the trends and has been continuing. And cultural studies try to understand the function of culture. So let's find out what is cultural studies. And this is the functioning of culture. The first point is functioning of culture, and particularly in the modern world. In the modern scenario and in the present world, importance of culture in our society. So that is analyzing by this cultural studies. How cultural productions work. എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഒരു cultural product society work ചെയ്യുന്നത്, how cultural identities are constructed or organized, how this culture constructed one society, ഒരു culture എങ്ങനെ society രൂപീകരിക്കുന്നു. So when we analyze the world, different cultures are there, the different types of societies, political, social, cultural background is different from one society to another society, but tremendous changes has been changing in the cultural studies, and it's about the cultural studies about the functioning of culture and the how cultural identity is constructed and how cultural productions work in the society. All these are the discussions going on under cultural studies. Yes, this rise of cultural studies can be traced back to 1950s, 1990s. So in 1990s, what happened? So it is the peak moment of cultural studies. But when we back to the 1950s, that means after Matthew Arnold and F.R. Lewis, and during that time in 1950s, Richard Hogarth and Raymond Williams, not these two important persons, one is Richard Hogarth, other one is Raymond Williams. Actually, they re-evaluated the culture. They tried to re-evaluate the culture because already high culture considered as a standard culture. The elite class people dominated the society. Richard Hogarth and Raymond Williams, and they looked and they read this Cultural Anarchy by Matthew Arnold and Great Edition by F.R. Lewis. They analyzed their aspects of these two writers' attitude towards culture, gave more importance to elite culture. But here, this Richard Hogarth and Raymond Williams actually re-evaluated. So what they did, evaluated the culture. They re-evaluated culture. They re-evaluated. They asked the questions regarding to what is actually culture and which culture is the prominent, which culture is giving more importance to our society. So they analyzed and they observed, they re-evaluated Raymond Williams and Richard Hogarth, and these two writers, they published seminal works in Great Britain. Here, the works you have to note it down. Richard Hogarth, the first person is Richard Hogarth. Richard Hogarth, the famous work is The Uses of Literary. Note it down. The Uses of Literary. The Uses of Literary is the work by Richard Hogarth. Richard Hogarth is actually came from one working class. That's why he realized that the culture means culture of everyone, and the working class culture is also should be considered as a equal to the other culture. So Richard Hogarth, in his work The Uses of Literary, he explores the post-war shifts in the lives of working class Britons confronted with the change in modernization. So as a result of this modernization and result of the influence of mass media, massification. So as a result of massification means influence of mass media. Here, this man Hogarth, he write about the shift of culture and shift in the lives of the working class in Britain and after and during the time of the modernization. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു മാസ് മീഡിയയുടെ ഇൻഫ്ലുവൻസ് കൊണ്ട് ബ്രിട്ടനിലെ ജനങ്ങളിൽ എത്രത്തോളം ഷിഫ്റ്റ് വന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. He analyzed and he has noted down in his work The Uses of Literary. Okay, The Uses of Literary by Richard Hogarth. So all this about Richard Hogarth, he came from working class and his work is The Uses of Literary, best example for the cultural studies. The next famous writer regarding this cultural studies is Williams, Raymond Williams. I think all of you heard about that great man. Raymond Williams, in his work Culture and Society, his important work is Culture and Society. Culture and Society, the great work by Raymond Williams, and he questioned the conventional notion. Question the convention, that means the traditional notions of making a distinction between low culture and high culture. That means culture and society. In our society, and when we analyze the history, the society is divided into low culture and high culture. The elite class culture, given importance by most of the writers and the elite people. Example, already we cited Matthew Arnold. Here, Raymond Williams, അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ culture and society അദ്ദേഹം question ചെയ്തു. ഒരു ട്രഡീഷണൽ നോഷൻസ് അല്ലേ, പൊതുവെ പഴയ ഒരു ചിന്താഗതി. എന്തായിരുന്നു ആ ഒരു ചിന്താഗതി? ഡിസ്റ്റിങ്ഷൻ, ദറ്റ് ഈസ് പാരിറ്റി between culture and society, and between high culture and low culture. Low culture and high culture, the difference and distinction, it was the attitude of the traditional people and traditional writers and philosophers. Here he noted and he analyzed and he re-evaluate about this relations, high culture and low culture. ഇത് തമ്മിലും വ്യത്യാസപ്പെടുത്തേണ്ട ആവശ്യമുണ്ടോ, ഇത് രണ്ടിനും നമുക്ക് ഒരേ തലത്തിൽ കൊണ്ടുവരേണ്ട അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഈക്വലി റിലേറ്റഡ് ആണോ, ഇത്തരം കാര്യങ്ങളെ കുറിച്ചൊക്കെയാണ് അദ്ദേഹം ഏതിൽ എഴുതിയിട്ടുള്ളത്? കൾച്ചർ ആൻഡ് സൊസൈറ്റി ബൈ റൈമണ്ട് വില്യംസ്. അപ്പോൾ ടു റൈറ്റേഴ്സ്, റിച്ചാർഡ് ഹഗാർഡ് ആൻഡ് വില്യം റൈമണ്ട്സ്, ആൻഡ് ദീസ് ടു റൈറ്റേഴ്സ് revolutionized and they made a great changes in the cultural studies by publishing some books. Okay, now when cultural studies emerged as a discipline, ee cultural studies oru discipline aayittu emerge chedu 1960s. Okay, 1990s is the period, the peak moment of the cultural studies. But when we take the history, 1950s, we have seen Richard Hogarth and Raymond Williams. And here the 1960s, and this time, cultural studies considered as a discipline. Its primary focus was the analysis and interpretation of popular culture. 1960കളിലെ ഇതൊരു ഡിസിപ്ലിനായി വരാൻ കാരണം analyzes and interpreted what popular culture. So popular culture ne കൂടുതൽ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് കൊടുത്ത സമയമാണ് 1960s. That means aim of what you mean with this popular culture and the popular culture, the cultural studies researchers and give more importance to the aim of cultural studies researchers. എന്താണ് നമ്മുടെ aim? To find out the impacts of cultural artifacts. Okay, impact of cultural artifacts and practices that were widely consumed within a society, including media, fashion, music. അല്ലേ, ഇപ്പം നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിൽ ഇപ്പം നടന്നുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമാണ് മീഡിയ, ഫാഷൻ, മ്യൂസിക് എക്സെട്ര. ഓൾ ദീസ് ആർ ദ ട്രെൻഡ് ഓഫ് ടുഡേസ് ട്രെൻഡ് അല്ലേ. സോഷ്യൽ മീഡിയ, ഇൻസ്റ്റഗ്രാം ആൻഡ് യൂട്യൂബ് അല്ലേ. all the people considered as a very highly skilled people. അതിന് മുൻപ് the platform എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ ആകെ കുറച്ച് പേർക്ക് മാത്രമാണ് നല്ലൊരു പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോം കിട്ടിയിരുന്നത്. അപ്പം മമ്മൂട്ടി, മോഹൻലാൽ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ കുറച്ച് പേര് മാത്രമാണ് മൂവിയിൽ, മീഡിയയിലൊക്കെ നിറഞ്ഞു നിന്നിരുന്നത്. ബട്ട് ഇൻ ദ സൊസൈറ്റി ആൻഡ് ദ പ്രസന്റ് സിനാരിയോ ആൻഡ് when we take the social media, we see many people means it is a limitless number. All the people, almost നമുക്ക് അങ്ങനെ തന്നെ പറയാം, the people are highly skilled people. Everyone is a highly talented one. Their talents they exposed and they presented in social media, because the social media is a free space for the free platform to show their culture, the popular. So actually this is a popular culture. Popular culture, it's a platform for everyone. The social media is a platform for everyone to present themselves as a great talented person. So no need of this channels or theater. Instead we can express our talents through this social media. Here the cultural studies researchers, അവരുടെ മെയിൻ എയിം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്തായിരുന്നു? ഈ മീഡിയ, ഫാഷൻ, മ്യൂസിക് അല്ലേ, അതിലൂടെയൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടാകുന്ന കൾച്ചറൽ ഇമ്പാക്ട്, the impact of the cultural artifacts and practices അല്ലേ. So within our society, how our society has been changing with the effect of all this media, social media and fashion, music. So this is the trend of the cultural studies researchers. Okay, note it down. Now in Marxism and Literature, this is the one of the works, Marxism Literature, published in 1979. Raymond Williams explores the ideology cultural materialism. Cultural materialism ഒരു ideology അദ്ദേഹം അവിടെ explain ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. Or the idea that economic forces and modes of production, economic forces or modes of production influence cultural products like literary work. How this economic forces and the production affect or interfere this literary works, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ influence literary work. Literary worksനെ എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഒരു economic forces ഒക്കെ affect ചെയ്യുന്നത്, അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് അദ്ദേഹം പറഞ്ഞ വർക്ക് ആയിരുന്നു Marxism and Literature by Raymond Williams. And this is very important, the repeated question in NT examination. 1964, not this year, 1964, Hogarth and Stuart Hall. Okay, Richard Hogarth and another man related to cultural studies is Stuart Hall. Stuart Hall founded the Birmingham Universities. Okay, actually Richard Hoggart founded this Birmingham Universities, and in this these two persons, and because Richard Hoggart is appointed Stuart Hall as the assistant of the CCSS. So CCSS means Center for Contemporary Studies. So CCSS means Center for Contemporary Studies, and assistant of this is Stuart Hall, appointed by Hoggart, Richard Hoggart. These two they found Birmingham Universities, adil form cheythaana CCSS, Center for Contemporary Studies, which became the synonyms with the cultural studies movement of that era. So this is the university, the Birmingham University, not for the cultural studies, the first one. And here the Richard Hoggart is appointed as the assistant, and in 1971 he became the director of CCSS. So Richard Hoggart actually founded this university, the CCSS, and the first the person related to this, that means the director of this CCSS was Stuart Hall, appointed by Richard Hoggart. Now E.P. Thompson, okay, E.P. Thompson published has influenced the making of the English. Okay, the work is the making of the English, the making of the English working class. The making of the English working class in 1964, the same year. The Birmingham University, same year 1964. Here Thompson also published a very important work, that is the making of English working class. And this book examines what the political and economic components of the working class. Okay, working class in a political, economic related things are explaining here. And mainly their identity, political identity and economic identity of the working class. And also he argued that the conceptions of individuality and have become the fragment in the post-World War. But the concept of individuality highlighted, and the working class political and economic identity also highlighted in the work of the making of the English working class in 1964 by E.P. Thompson, also noted done for the cultural studies. During 1970s, excuse me, during 1970s, literary critics, they discussed cultural materialism. Okay, cultural materialism, already we just talked about that. Cultural materialism in terms of hegemony. Okay, hegemony is a term used by Italian Marxist Antonio Gramsci. Antonio Gramsci is the invisible relations of cultural intellectual dominations in 1970s hegemony and cultural materialism relations discussed by some critics in 1970s. So just to find out the years, in 1950s, Richard Hoggart and Raymond Williams, they started their revolutions about cultural studies. And 1960s and 1964 CCSS, that is the Center for Contemporary Society, and 1970s, and this cultural materialism, and in terms of the hegemony, a study happened. All this about this years. In 1990s, that period was one of the peak moments of cultural studies. Everyone is considered as a cultural studies important area of study. Now, cultural studies generally share 4 goals. Main cultural studies go beyond the limits of a particular subject. A particular subject, it's a wide one. It's a go beyond a particular subject, such as literary history and criticism. But the go beyond, that means a wide. All aspects consider cultural studies. That's why it is talking about go beyond the limits of a particular subject. And a subject, social, political, cultural, economic, every aspect is considering what as cultural studies. And cultural studies as politically active, politically active, and they question the inequalities of the power structure. Power, hegemony, power, ideology, this question politically active inequalities of the power structure. Our society layer question cultural studies. That's why this questioned what this power of structures and seek to restructure them. They tried to restructure that layer, the structure already created by someone else. The ideology, it is put forward by someone else. So that is actually this cultural study persons do in our society. And the third one, cultural studies deny the separation of high and low. Already we have said this high and low culture, popular culture, subculture, all forms of cultural productions are studied in relation to other cultural practices. Relation, it's closely related to from one to other. Elladum angotum ingotum closely related aanu. And there is no any disparity or distinction between high culture, low culture, popular culture. Everything is considered as interrelated. And the fourth one, cultural studies analyzes not only the cultural work, but cultural work മാത്രമല്ല അതിൻ്റെ means of production work മാത്രം അനലൈസ് ചെയ്യാതെ ആ വർക്ക് എങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മുടെ സൊസൈറ്റിയിൽ ഇമ്പാക്റ്റ് കൊണ്ടുവന്നത്. ഒരു മൂവി വരികയാണെങ്കിൽ ആ മൂവി എങ്ങനെയാണ് സൊസൈറ്റിയിൽ ഇമ്പാക്റ്റ് കൊണ്ടുവരുന്നത്. ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു വർക്ക് ഓഫ് ആർട്ട് ആണെങ്കിൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു ആർട്ടിഫാക്റ്റ്, ഹൗ ഇറ്റ് മേക്ക് ഇമ്പാക്റ്റ് ഇൻ ദ സൊസൈറ്റി. സോ ആക്ച്വലി കൾച്ചറൽ സ്റ്റഡീസ് ഇസ് സ്റ്റഡിയിങ് ഓൾ ദിസ്. ഓക്കെ, നൗ we have some PYQ. Now let me rewind. In this short video I have given to you cultural studies. What is cultural studies? It was a reaction against what the orthodox Marxism. Matthew Arnold and F.R. Lees, they gave importance to the elite culture. But the revolution happened when Richard Hogarth and William Ryman's entered into this writing platform. They written some of the works and they highlighted the importance of the culture, the equality of all cultures. Then we have gone through some of the years, 1950s, 60s, 70s, and 1990s, the peak moment of the cultural studies. Now let's find out how UGC, how NTA asked the questions regarding the cultural studies. Now this is the first question. Given below are two statements. നിങ്ങൾ ആൻസർ ചെയ്യണേ. One is assertion, other one is reason. Assertion എന്താ നോക്കാം. Cultural studies is simply the study of culture. Simply a study of culture as a discrete entity divorced from its social and political context. Social political context എന്നൊക്കെ divorced ആണ്, മാറി നിൽക്കുന്ന ഒന്നാണ്. And here the reason, cultural studies aim to understand culture in all its complex forms and to അത് പഠിക്കുന്നത് എല്ലാ complex forms analyze the social, political context within which it manifests itself. So here the options are, option A, both A and R are true and R is the correct. രണ്ടും both A and R are true and R is the correct. ഇതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടത് R ആണ് കറക്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ളത്. രണ്ട് സ്റ്റേറ്റ്മെൻറ്റും അല്ലെങ്കിൽ രണ്ട് സംഭവങ്ങളും ശരിയാണെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. Okay, sorry, the R is the correct explanation of A. But one is the assertion, other one is reason. But reason is the correct reason ആണ്, രണ്ടും true ആണെന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. Option B, both A and R are true. പക്ഷേ R എന്തല്ല, not the correct explanation of A. A ന്റെ correct explanation അല്ല. And the C, A is true but R is false. And D, A is false but R is true. First assertion നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞത് എന്തായിരുന്നു, discrete ആണ്, divorce ആണ്. Actually cultural studies that touches every aspect of the society, political, social, economic. That's why here the option D is the right answer. That means A is false, discrete അല്ല, divorce അല്ല. അതേസമയം R is true because it considered all the aspects of the things like political, social അല്ലേ. അപ്പം അതുകൊണ്ട് ആദ്യത്തേത് തെറ്റാണ്, ആ ഒരു assertion തന്നെ തെറ്റാണ്. But the second one, that is true. Now the second question, the key figures in the development of British cultural studies are. Important figures അല്ലേ, the key figures. Important ആയിട്ടുള്ള figures ആരൊക്കെയാണെന്നാണ് ഈ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യനിൽ ചോദിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഫസ്റ്റ് റിച്ചാർഡ് ഹൊഗാർട്ട്, ആൻഡ് സെക്കൻഡ് റൈമണ്ട് വില്യംസ്, ആൻഡ് സ്റ്റുവർട്ട് ഹോൾ, ലോറൻസ് ക്രോസ്ബർഗ്. ഓപ്ഷൻസ് കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. നിങ്ങളുടെ ആൻസേഴ്സ് നിങ്ങളിതിൽ നിങ്ങളുടെ ചാറ്റ് ബോക്സിൽ ചെയ്യാം. ഓക്കെ, the right answer, അപ്പോൾ ഓൾറെഡി നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞ റിച്ചാർഡ് ഹഗാർഡ്, റൈമണ്ട് വില്യംസ്, സ്റ്റുവർട്ട് ഹോൾ, ഈ മൂന്ന് നെയിംസും വി ആർ ഫെമിലിയർ. സോ which will be the right answer? A, B and C. Richard Hogarth, Raymond Williams and Stuart Hall, and these are the three persons related to what? Related to this cultural studies. Okay, and now next question. What was the center set up for studying culture at the University of Birmingham called? നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യമാണ്, Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, Center for Contemporary Studies, Center for Cultural Studies, Center for New Cultural Studies. So which is the right answer? Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, the right answer. Birmingham University, Richard Hogarth, 1964. Already endu cheyidittundaayirunnu and he formed that. Okay. Now, this is the Birmingham School, better known as the Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. A research center ആണ് University of Birmingham, founded by Richard Hogarth, 1964, and school play major role in the development of cultural studies. Cultural studies in ഒരുപാട് improvements, ഒരുപാട് studies നടന്ന important ആയിട്ടുള്ള first ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു important ആയിട്ടുള്ള center ആണ് the Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. Now question number 4, which of these UK universities, so the first institutional incorporation of cultural studies? The UK university ആണ് first ആയിട്ടുള്ള institutional incorporation of cultural studies. Here option A, Bath Spa University, option B, Oxford University, option C, University of Birmingham, option D, Cambridge University. I think you don't have any doubt because University of Birmingham, 1964, Richard Hogarth, noted for the first university for the cultural studies. Okay, no doubt, because it's the first one. And now, fifth one, Stuart Hall belongs to School of Cultural Studies. And which is your right answer? Option A, Oxford. Stuart Hall belongs to Dash School of Cultural Studies. Option A, Oxford. Option B, Cambridge. Option C, Birmingham. And option D, American. Stuart Hall belongs to Dash School of Cultural Studies. ഇപ്പോൾ ഒന്ന് ആലോചിക്കേണ്ടത് എന്താണെന്നറിയോ, ഇത് റിപ്പീറ്റഡ് ഈ ബർമിംഗ്ഹാം യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി 1964 റിച്ചാർഡ് ഹഗാർഡ് സ്റ്റുവർട്ട് ഹാൾ റിപ്പീറ്റഡ് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ഓഫ് NT എക്സാം. വളരെ കുറവായിരിക്കും നമുക്ക് റിപ്പീറ്റേഷൻ വരുന്നത്. പക്ഷേ ഹിയർ we see when I analyzed the previous year questions, the Birmingham University's importance is highlighted in the question paper. Now the sixth one, the subject matter of cultural studies, as it emerged as a proto-discipline. Subject matter എങ്ങനെയാണ് പറയുന്നത്? Proto-discipline 1960s. നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞു 1960s അതൊരു ഡിസിപ്ലിൻ ആയിട്ട് വരുന്നുണ്ട് എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിരുന്നു. ഓക്കെ, was predominantly exploration of ആ സമയത്ത് ഏറ്റവും കൂടുതൽ ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻസ് കൊടുത്തത് എന്തിനായിരുന്നു? ഹൈ കൾച്ചർ, പോപ്പുലർ കൾച്ചർ ആൻഡ് സബാൾട്ടൈൻ ഹിസ്റ്ററി, contemporary politics. 1960s and noted for its proto-discipline, and cultural studies is emerged as a one discipline. During that time, the writers and the philosophers, the critics and the researchers of cultural studies, they studied about the popular culture. Your answer is popular culture. Okay. Now seventh one, what does the abbreviated term CCSS, okay, CCSS stand for in the context of cultural studies? Okay, here the first option, Consortium of a Cooperative Cultural Society. Option B, Conference on a Contemporary Culture and Society. Option C, Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. And option D, Conclave for Collective Consciousness and Socialization. Here the correct one, the what does the abbreviated term CCCS, okay, CCCS, okay, CCSS means the Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies, okay, this is the CCCS, okay, Center for Contemporary Cultural Studies. This is the expansion of what CCCS, okay, abbreviated form ആണ് നമ്മൾ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. ഇപ്പോൾ ഇന്നത്തെ ഡിസ്കഷനിൽ 7 ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ആണ് പ്രീവിയസ് ഇയർ ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത്. അതിന് മുൻപ് വാട്ട് ഇസ് കൾച്ചറൽ സ്റ്റഡീസും അതുപോലെ തന്നെ വെൻ ഇറ്റ് ഈസ് എമേർജ്ഡ് ആൻഡ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻറ്റ് ഫിഗേഴ്സ്, ദ കീ പ്രൊപ്പണൻസ് ആൻഡ് ദ കീ ഫിഗേഴ്സ് റിലേറ്റഡ് ടു കൾച്ചറൽ സ്റ്റഡീസ്, development of cultural studies when we analyze the years 1950s, 60s, 70s and 90s. All this we have cited, and previous year questions also we have done, and from this we got one thing, the repetition also came in the case of cultural studies. So cultural studies is a big area, vast area, and we provide a wonderful classes. The PEPP Learning provide classes on cultural studies. So start your study and all the very best.